Ronnie Coleman, the greatest mass monster ever, didn't ride into the sunset. He limped there. 8 Sandows, endless PRs, and a training style that made gyms shake. Then the bills came due. Crushed discs, nerve damage, and a stack of surgeries turned the king into a permanent patient. He kept smiling, kept showing up, but the competitive career, over not with a loss, but with a body that simply couldn't cash the checks his legend kept writing. Flex Wheeler, the Sultan of Symmetry, had everything: shape, flow, presence, charisma. To many, he was the greatest bodybuilder never to win Mr. Olympia. His physique in the 1990s was so flawless that even Arnold Schwarzenegger once called him one of the most gifted athletes he had ever seen. He stacked up multiple Arnold Classic titles, battled legends like Ronnie Coleman and Dorian Yates, and built a legacy on lines and aesthetics that still influence bodybuilding today. But behind the polished stage look, his body was already breaking down. Kidney disease first cut into his run. Years of stress, dieting, and genetics collided into a crisis that ended with a kidney transplant in 2000. While some assumed that would be the end, Flex fought back, even stepping back on stage in 2017 in the classic physique division. But it wasn't the same. Complications lingered, and his health became the real opponent. In 2019, after severe circulation problems, doctors had to amputate part of his right leg. The bodybuilding world was stunned. The man who once embodied perfection was suddenly in a fight just to walk again. Shawn Rhoden. His story is one of the most shocking and heartbreaking in bodybuilding history. In 2018, at 43 years old, he pulled off what many thought was impossible, defeating 7-time champion Phil Heath to become Mr. Olympia. It wasn't just a win, it was a passing of the torch. Rhoden's victory was celebrated as the return of aesthetics over sheer mass, a throwback to the golden era of symmetry and flow. Fans expected a new reign, a string of title defenses, maybe even a late-career dynasty. But instead of standing on stage the next year with his Sandow in hand, everything collapsed. In 2019, legal accusations surfaced, serious charges that he always denied. Before a trial ever began, the IFBB banned him from competing. Sponsors pulled back. The physique world, once ready to watch him defend his crown, watched him sit on the sidelines in limbo. For years, his name lingered more in headlines than in contest lineups, and the longer the silence stretched, the more his career faded into uncertainty. Competitors passed him by, new champions emerged, and Rhoden's Olympia moment began to feel frozen in time, a one-night peak no one could ever see repeated. Then, in November 2021, tragedy struck. Rhoden died suddenly of a cardiac event at just 46 years old. The bodybuilding world was left stunned. A champion gone not because of defeat, but because of life's cruelest twist. He should have been remembered for reshaping the Olympia stage, but instead his story became one of unfulfilled potential and unanswered questions. From champion to sideline to tragic, Shawn Rhoden's career wasn't just cut short, it was erased in real time, leaving the sport wondering what might have been. Andreas Menzer. If bodybuilding had a poster child for extreme conditioning, it was him. On stage, he looked like he was carved out of stone, paper-thin skin, veins like road maps, and striations so deep they almost looked unreal. His granite-hard physique became the gold standard for shredded, the kind of look fans and judges couldn't ignore. He wasn't the biggest guy in the lineup, but his dryness and detail made him unforgettable. To this day, photos of Menzer are still used as the ultimate example of peeled conditioning. But the price for that look was staggering. Menzer was known for relentless dieting, insane training, and an almost non-stop reliance on diuretics and performance-enhancing drugs to push his body past normal limits. Unlike other competitors who cycled off, Menzer reportedly stayed on year-round, chasing that stage-ready look, whether it was contest season or not. The result was a physique that looked superhuman, but a body that was slowly breaking down from the inside. In 1996, after competing in the San Francisco Pro, Menzer's body finally gave out. His organs, stressed beyond repair, failed. He was just 31 years old. His death sent shockwaves through the bodybuilding community and became one of the sport's darkest cautionary tales. Judges and athletes alike were forced to confront just how dangerous the pursuit of freaky conditioning could be. Andreas Menzer never had the long career his talent and work ethic deserved. Instead, he became a tragic symbol of the razor-thin line between pushing limits and crossing them. His legacy isn't just about shredded muscle, it's about the warning he left behind. Even in bodybuilding, looking invincible doesn't mean you are. Dallas McCarver. Few bodybuilders ever carried the label Future Mr. Olympia as convincingly as he did. Bursting onto the pro scene in his early 20s, Dallas wasn't just big, he was enormous, with slabs of muscle that looked decades beyond his age. He stood over 6 feet tall, weighed north of 300 pounds in the offseason, and still managed to carry symmetry and balance that judges craved. By 25, he'd already cracked the top 10 at the Olympia, a feat that had veterans and fans whispering that it was only a matter of time before he was standing at the very top of the sport. His training videos became legendary. pressing dumbbells that most pros wouldn't even try to unrack, moving weight like it was nothing, and pushing himself until failure looked like a warm-up. To many, Dallas embodied the perfect combination of size, strength, and charisma. He wasn't just a mass monster. He had the charm and marketability to be the face of bodybuilding for the next decade. But that story ended before it really began. On August 27, 2017, Dallas McCarver collapsed at home and passed away. The bodybuilding world was stunned. He was only 26. No farewell, no gradual decline, just gone in an instant. His sudden death froze his career in time, forever a rising star, never the champion he seemed destined to become. Fans still debate how far he would have gone. Could he have dethroned Phil Heath? Could he have been the one to usher in a new era of giants? Those questions will never be answered. Instead, Dallas became a haunting what if, a career stuck permanently in second gear, remembered for its potential rather than its conclusion. In bodybuilding circles, his name still carries the weight of promise unfulfilled, a reminder that tomorrow isn't guaranteed, no matter how unstoppable you look today. Luke Sandow. For a while, he was the UK's brightest hope in bodybuilding, a competitor with not just the muscle, but the stage presence that made people lean forward when he posed. At over 250 pounds, shredded, his physique had that rare blend of size, flow, and detail that made fans believe he could stand shoulder to shoulder with the best in the world. By 2019, he had cracked the Olympia top 10, finishing 11th in his debut, and then surging up the ranks with a third-place finish at the Arnold Classic behind William Bonac and Dexter Jackson. Suddenly, everyone was talking about Luke as the next great contender. But it wasn't just his physique. Luke's personality made him a star outside the stage lights. He was charismatic, funny, brutally honest, and built a reputation online through interviews, podcasts, and training content that made him relatable to fans in a way few pros ever manage. He wasn't just another mass monster, he was a character, someone who gave bodybuilding a human face. For many, he was carrying the flag for a new generation. Then, in May 2020, tragedy struck. At just 30 years old, Luke Sandow was gone. Suddenly, shockingly, off stage and far too soon. The bodybuilding community reeled. One moment, fans were discussing his chances in the next Arnold or Olympia lineup. The next, they were writing tributes and struggling to process the loss. Luke's death wasn't the ending anyone saw coming. His career was finally clicking, his fan base was growing, and his best years seemed to be in front of him. Instead, his story became one of the sport's most painful reminders that muscle and momentum can't protect against life's fragility. Today, when fans look back at Luke Sandow, they don't just remember a rising star. They remember the competitor who never got to finish the climb, leaving behind not disappointment, but grief and a permanent what-if. Mohamed Benaziza. In the early 1990s, no one embodied the word conditioned quite like him. Born in Algeria, raised in France, Benaziza stormed onto the bodybuilding scene with a level of hardness and dryness that bordered on unreal. On stage, his muscles looked like they were carved with a scalpel, striations on striations, vascularity that seemed painted on, and a level of detail that made even seasoned pros take notice. Fans and fellow athletes called him Killer Physique because of how sharp and peeled he looked. His intensity on stage and his reputation for pushing his body beyond normal limits made him a feared competitor. He even defeated a young Dorian Yates in competition, a feat that in hindsight speaks volumes about how dangerous he was on his best day. But that extreme came with consequences. Benaziza was known for chasing dryness with relentless use of diuretics. At the 1992 Dutch Grand Prix, just hours after competing, he was found dead in his hotel room. The official cause was heart failure, brought on by dehydration and the heavy chemical toll of trying to reach inhuman levels of condition. He was only 33 years old. Some careers end in gold, some in goodbye speeches. These ended with sirens, silence, or questions that will never get answered. And that's the part no highlight reel prepares you for. In bodybuilding, the physique is the trophy, and sometimes the price.